Wow, nice turnout. I almost thought I was going to announce a road closing or something, or opening. It's great to be here. This is our 4th annual State of the Community event. I want to recognize Don Flo, who is the chairman of the Winston-Salem Alliance, and sitting beside him is Stan Kelly, who these two gentlemen had the bright idea 4 years ago that we needed to be doing this. So it's been a great thing as we come together and try to share with you where we're at with regards to our economy and many aspects of that. We're fortunate and pleased to have several elected officials here. Many of my colleagues on the City Council, Councilmember James Taylor, if you just raise your hand, Councilmember Annette Scipio, Councilmember Jeff McIntosh, Councilmember Denise Adams here, and Councilmember John Larson. Did anyone else come in that I missed from the council? Then we got Vice Chairman of the County Commissioners, Don Martin, is here. Don, thank you. And our member of the school board, Lida Hayes Calvert, is here. Did I miss any other elected officials? Great. Well, thank you again for coming. As I mentioned, this is our fourth time getting together. We'll point out that we are videoing this, and we'll be pushing it out on most of our social media, as well as our presenters organizations will do that as well, and we'll have it on TV 13 to be up and running in the next 2 days or so. So let's get right to it. And I'll just say over the next hour, we're going to share with you a lot of information. So I hope you don't come away feeling like you took a big drink from a fire hose, but you saw some meaningful data that was helpful for you there. So here we are at the 2019 State of the Community event, and what we always want to do is kind of remind us of our goal. And that goal is we want to make Winston-Salem one of the top 50 metropolitan areas in the country. And what does it take? It's simply a jobs number, a jobs creation. It takes us creating 5,400 net new jobs per year for 5 years. And for those of you who have been with us, you know we've only been hitting about half that number in past years. But I'll just say stay tuned this year. We've been focusing on, and we'll continue to focus on our presentation today, 3 critical pieces of that. The Wake Forest Innovation Quarter, I'll cover that in just a second. Bob Leake will be reporting on Whitaker Park and the many exciting things that are happening there, as well as touching on some of the major projects that we've been doing. And then Karen Barnes, who's our Executive Director of Venture Cafe, will give us an update on the entrepreneurial culture and going from there. So let's get right down to the numbers. Here's where I don't want to have you glaze over too much. So let's look at unemployment rate. Now, that's one that we always want to have a good feel for. If you look at that chart over on the right, it looks like a ski slope. Beginning in 2010, right at the height of the recession, or coming right out of the recession, you saw we were up into 9%, now 10% in unemployment. It's been a steady decline down to this year. We ended the year at 3.6% unemployment compared to 4.2% last year, compared very favorably with our good friends over in Greensboro. So that's a good trend that we're liking. Now, if you took that same slide and we were looking at actually job growth over that same 8-year period, you'd flip that chart right upside down. You'd be growing from 2010 all the way up to today. In fact, we created 28,000 net new jobs during that 8-year period. Now, here's the number that we're looking for. You look at 2017, last year, we only created about 2,100 net new jobs, which is roughly half what we needed. But look at 2018. We created 5,300 net new jobs, which is a 157% increase over 2017. Now, Don, I went back and double-checked these numbers with Ted Abernathy, the North Carolina Department of Commerce, and the Bureau of Labor Statistics, so we feel good about the number, which means that we are producing at about a 2.2 annual job growth rate, which is, again, is about double what we had been doing. That means, folks, that we are basically hitting our goal this year for the 5,400 jobs, and we feel really, really good about that. Other indicators that we like to look at on a regular basis, they're on the left. Annual visitor spending. Our good friends down at Visit Winston-Salem, Rich Geiger, we've increased visitor spending this year by 6%, up to $900 million. As you know, those are some really good dollars for our community. People come in, spend monies at our restaurants, hotels, retail establishments, and others, then they go home. leave their money. That's always something we like. Look at these next two numbers. Residential construction, $295 million, up 5.7%. And then look at this, non-residential construction, $416 million, up 10%. We broke a 10-year high in terms of that. Now, Councilmember Adams and I and others spent all day yesterday talking in a strategic planning session, and we need these kind of investments. Over at Piedmont Triad International Airport, our passengers were up 7% last year. Cargo was up 12%. Now, why is that important? You know, as we are continuing to grow our economy, change our economy to one where a lot of our businesses rely on good air service and travel, having that airport being viable is crucial to us. Over on the right-hand side, you see a listing of gross domestic product percent change. It's important to see how our economy is doing relative to the country and other areas. In the U.S. last year, the gross domestic product increased by 2.1%. Winston-Salem was 2.3%. So we compare very, very favorably to the U.S., compare very favorably to Greensboro, actually doubling them almost, right at the same level as Raleigh. Charlotte was just a little bit ahead of us, and then Durham, according to the Bureau of Economic Analysis that provided this, had 0 increase in their GDP. I don't know exactly what happened there, but we're pleased with where Winston-Salem is at in that regard. Also, I wanted to go back and just mention to you, some have asked about that 5,300 job number and where it came from in our economy. About half of it came from what we call the professional and business services. Another 1,600 came from the trades professions, 700 from education, and 400 in leisure services. So it's well spread all throughout the economy. We've had some pretty neat recognitions over the year. Forbes magazine listed Winston as one of the 14 best places to visit in 2019, so that should bode well for us in keeping our visitor spending going strong. Realtor.com listed Winston-Salem as one of the 10 next urban powerhouses. And to me, this is very exciting. It says to us that we're poised to hope continue this strong growth over the next several years. And then USA Today ranked the River Run Festival as one of the 10 amazing film festivals that's worth traveling for in the country. So let's get right into some of the projects. I'm going to run through the Innovation Quarter numbers fairly quickly, and then we'll move forward. Innovation Quarter, as you know, is our large urban research park. We think it's the largest urban research park in the country, tied right into a center city. Over about 200 acres or so there. The Bailey Power Plant project is complete. The Phase 1 North, great facility as offices. Matter of fact, Karen's office is in there. There's meeting space, there are restaurants, there's breweries, research going on in there. Wonderful renovation and rehabilitation of that old factory there and power plant. The Bailey Power Plant South, the next phase of that and the final phase is under construction by Robin Team and Coleman team that will be converting that into more retail, more offices, and more restaurants. And that should be completed next June of 20. There's an 800 space parking deck which finished last year, open for business, and wrapped around that parking deck is 340 apartments being constructed that will be finished later this year. Here are the current numbers there in the Innovation Quarter. There are 176 companies there, 1,075 residential units. It's been more than $800 million of investment that has occurred in this northern part of it. There are almost 4,000 employees working in the Innovation Quarter now, along with 9,100 students that come in through Forsyth Tech, the medical school, and others. So it's a very dynamic and growing part of our economy and one of those 3 key sectors. Call your attention to the last bullet down at the bottom. Downtown development continues to grow very, very rapidly. Almost $2 billion, $1.9 billion of investment has occurred in our center city since the year 2000. I saw Jason Thiel earlier. Jason, congratulations to you and the Downtown Partnership and all those others who make this happen. We're fortunate to have a very viable and thriving, growing downtown, and Jason will be giving out awards in the morning to recognize some of that investment. So we're real thrilled with how all that's going. So now I want to call on Karen Barnes, the Executive Director of Venture Cafe, to come up and give us the report on the entrepreneurship and the innovation ecosystem. Karen?
Thank you for having us here. We are delighted to see familiar faces and elected officials here. The entrepreneurial ecosystem is at an inflection point in Winston-Salem. I was reminded a few weeks ago by a good friend of mine of this saying, and it goes, change happens fast, or I'm sorry, change happens slowly until it doesn't. I really thought about that. I couldn't get that out of my mind for the last several weeks because we've all seen what happens when change is thrust upon us. And we can either wait until change happens to us, or we can accelerate the pace of change to become what we want. And that's what we are trying to do here in the entrepreneurial culture and the entrepreneurial ecosystem here, not only just in Winston-Salem, but truly regionally in the Triad. We all know what it looks and feels like now when change is thrust upon us. It's time for us to increase our commitment to and our investment in the local ecosystem, to act faster, to act bolder, to think more innovatively, to invite startups into your procurement process if you're a company doing business here in Winston-Salem, and to create the change that we all want and deserve to have a more dynamic, resilient, and equitable economy. At Venture Cafe, we believe that innovation in all its forms, business, technology, urban, civic, social innovation, is a process to improve the human condition. We're a nonprofit, and we are now one of 8 locations around the world. We are by far the smallest, and that is because Venture Cafe Global saw promise here. And we take that idea that we are in a global prototype extremely seriously. We have connections across Asia Pacific and Europe and 5 locations in North America. And it is up to us to help connect Winston-Salem with these other global locations. Our mission is to connect entrepreneurs and innovators with the resources they need and the people they need to start, build, grow, and scale businesses right here. And we do that through our work and our programs that are all focused on this nexus point about the intersection of innovation, entrepreneurship, and economic mobility. We all know that we have economic mobility issues in this community. I'm not the organization that is packing food in backpacks. I support that with my heart and my head and my wallet. But what we're doing is we are applying those tools of entrepreneurship and innovation to attack these entrenched problems and to provide a ladder out of poverty for people who want to start their own businesses. We do this through our programming. Every Thursday at Bailey Power Plant in the Innovation Quarter, we host a miniature conference every week. It's free. There's wine, there's beer, there's incredible people that are there. Why aren't you there? It is high-quality, free education. If you're interested in what's happening in this city, if you're interested in ideas, in any and all forms of innovation, in investing in this community, you will find your people at Venture Cafe. We are also working with companies to accelerate their internal innovation efforts, and we are building a global innovation cohort with a chapter right here in Winston-Salem. And we are connecting these companies, these investors, and these people that are pushing for change with resources around the globe. This is some of the impact that we're starting to see here in Winston-Salem. And I'm not going to do the bouncing ball. We're going to see plenty of numbers today. But there are plenty of ways that we are pushing in front of the scenes, behind the scenes, and there's more to come. So I'd like to invite up to the podium now my business partner, Wilson Lester, who is the Executive Director of Piedmont Business Capital. Wilson and I have a joint venture, and Wilson is going to tell you all about what's coming next.
Thank you. Good morning. Okay. So I'm new to Winston-Salem, and I'm from our neighboring community right over in Guilford County, and Piedmont Business Capital has been doing a lot of positive work there. And over the last several years, we've loaned about $850,000 to businesses that don't normally fit in the bailiwick of traditional banking. What that really means is we've created about 303 jobs there and about $7 million to the local tax base in the most distressed zip codes in Greensboro and the surrounding county area. Last year, we made the decision that we were going to also provide that service and support to the city of Winston-Salem and Forsyth County, and we changed our name from the Greensboro Community Development Fund to Piedmont Business Capital. And early last year, Karen and I were sitting down and we were just trying to figure out how we could do something together. We knew we had a good energy. We knew that we wanted to be responsible for our community and make an impact on businesses that needed the support the most, businesses that may not have the looks that a lot of non-minority or non-woman-owned firms have across the region. So while we were kicking around this topic, an RFP came out for a terrific opportunity, and that is the MWB ESA Center that we are launching at the Bailey Power Plant. This is about connecting folks to transactional relationships where they're allowed to create a job for themselves and create a job for others in their community. And we are so excited about it. We're so excited to have the support and the partnership of Wexford and the Wake Forest Innovation Quarter. And we're looking forward to what we'll be able to do. And we are employing all of you all to lock arms with us in this activity and in this venture as we bring more equity to Winston-Salem and bring more opportunity to create wealth to businesses that wouldn't normally see the look. So please give a round of applause to what will be Access Center for Equity and Success. So in this space, you're going to see a lot of one-on-one business coaching, contract matching, working with local purchasing and procurement offices in the private and public space throughout the region to ensure that women and minority-owned firms have an opportunity to engage these offices so they can be familiar with the products and services and capabilities that they have to deliver in their business capacities. So we're really excited, we're really entrenched, and this is just the beginning. I do want to let all of you know that we've gotten clearance, and on March 15th, please mark your calendars. We're going to have a soft opening where we're going to invite folks in so that they can see the space, so that they can engage us, so we can do a deeper dive on the topics and services that the space is going to be providing. You know, this is really unique. There is no space like this in North Carolina that has this development resource but has the capital embedded in it. Right now we're working on about a $500,000 capital stack for Forsyth County. We're about 2/3 the way there so that we can begin this lending for these businesses in this segment so they can be successful and demonstrate the kind of growth that helps support the type of impact numbers that the mayor was speaking of earlier. Thank you.
Wilson tells the story way better than I ever could. So when we look at the entrepreneurial ecosystem here, we look at 4 pillars of entrepreneurship, and I'm just going to go over those quickly with you here today. We're making progress on all 4 fronts, but there's still a lot of work to be done. We've raised more investment funds here. We're part of a regional fundraising angel network. We have the Dioco Fund, but we need more money. Not only just as a community in Winston-Salem, but North Carolina as a state does not attract a large number of venture capital funds and outside investors, and that's something we're going to have to work on very seriously. Last year was a very good year in terms of startup and makerspace. Winston-Salem Mixer and Winston Starts both opened, so we've got some really positive progress there. We've got a very generous set of mentors. There are probably 50 of them in this room, people who have started successful businesses who want to give back. But we have so many people who want to start businesses, we're always looking for more mentors. And finally, community building and collaboration. Not only are we working very closely, all of these support organizations in Winston-Salem, as you just saw, we now have a regional ecosystem partnership with Greensboro, and we all have shared priorities, shared strategies, and we are writing joint grants together to identify gaps and fill those gaps with solutions. I'm not content for Winston-Salem to be a farm team for Charlotte or Raleigh or Atlanta. So we are working with everybody up here and a lot more to really push this idea of entrepreneurship as an economic development priority. So what does that look like? Well, that looks like, for one thing, re-examining incentives. All of our economic incentives right now are based on the number of square feet of manufacturing space that you have. Guess how much that helps our startups? Squat. They rent a 10 by 10 office, or they're working at their kitchen table. So we've been working with the city, with other entities and organizations, and we've put together a new incentive model that will help startups and companies here attract and retain and recruit tech talent. Now, why is tech talent so important? Because these are what are called multiplier jobs. For every one tech job that is created, 5 additional jobs are created. Not just tech jobs, healthcare jobs, retail jobs, service jobs. These are the multiplier effect. This is the kind of job growth that we need to put more emphasis on through new incentives. It's time to double down and really start supporting the startups that are here. I want to see jobs created in every quarter of this city. I want to see every person who wants to start a business, who wants to grow a business here in Winston-Salem, build it here, scale it up, and stay here. I want to see how many jobs we can create that are white-collar jobs, that are not call center jobs, or that are jobs that can support a family. So how do we do that? Here's my ask of you. If you are in a company, as I mentioned before, open your procurement process to startups. They have access to ideas and technology that you need. And they need you because they need data, they need places to prove their concept, they need customers. If you're economically able to, invest in the startups that are here. We need more homegrown companies. And if you can't do that, consider supporting entrepreneurial support organizations like Venture Cafe and the 60+ others that are working to make this economy work harder. So we're at this inflection point, and others are noticing. I'm going to add a bit of recognition that the mayor allowed me to announce. So nationswell.org is an organization that recently chose Winston-Salem as one of 5 cities across America. Albany, Denver, Grand Rapids, Louisville, Kentucky, and Winston-Salem as 5 cities in the country that are resurgent. So I invite you to go onto YouTube, search NationsWell, Winston-Salem, and you will see an amazing 8-minute video that tells our story, and tells our story in a way that is hopeful and compelling. So I'm going to wrap this up and say, who here wants to wait for change to sweep us away on its tide, or who's willing to dig in and do the work? It's time for bold action, visionary leadership, and a community that rallies around each other to regain the entrepreneurial spirit that made this town and will make it again. Together, we all will rise. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Karen. If we can just get her to have more energy, we'll be all right, I think. Now I'd like to ask Mark Owens, the president of the Greater Winston-Salem Chamber of Commerce, to come up and tell us about major projects and retention efforts that the Chamber's been doing. Mark?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor. I moved to this wonderful community 14 months ago, and as one of the newest members of the community, I have the challenge of following Karen and her energy from the podium. So I'm going to take that challenge, Karen, and keep moving forward. I want to start by just recognizing this audience. We talk about numbers and we talk about our community, and we're here to tell you those numbers. But in my opinion, it starts with people. And to have a standing room crowd of people that care about their community, to take time out of their day, I want to stop and just give all of you a round of applause for taking that time. And Mayor, if it's okay, I'd like to recognize 2 other people. I saw Chief Mayo and Chief Thompson from our fire and police with us. Thank y'all for all that you do to keep us safe. All right, economic update. So I have a few things that I want to start with. So we have some numbers, and there'll be two pieces that I'll be covering. Some of the population numbers, things of that nature economically, and then also some education information that our chamber is able to pull reports from. But I wanted to build off of what Karen mentioned, that this is a great time to be in Winston-Salem. My family and I chose to move here because of the swell of momentum that we have. And we can't do that by ourselves. We do it as a unit, as a team, and as a community. So when we got here, our Chamber of Commerce rebranded, and we have one tagline. It's the word together. We can do amazing things if we do them together, and that is all parts of our community, all facets of our economic situation, and finding ways to do that through growth. And I look at that growth by three different things. How can we be the best place to start and grow a business anywhere? We need to start our businesses. We need to grow them. We need to grow and support the ones that are here, that have their roots here, that are continuing to invest in our community. And then we need to work and partner to help recruit others to join us and join our team as we go forward. But we have to do that together. And there's a lot of things happening for that to take place. And we have a lot of great stories that are underway and great stories to tell, but we need each and one of you to share that story with your contacts. Spread the word. You can watch that Nation Swell video on the Chamber's Facebook page, shameless plug, or you can check out many of the different websites. So we have to get our story out there and tell that and start making some change. And we are doing that, but there's a great foundation, and let me re-say that. Their foundation for our community has been laid by the leaders before us and the current leaders, and it's time that we continue to build on that. So let me tell you some of the numbers that go with that to showcase what we're talking about. First, to me, it comes down to people. And we look at people as the number one asset of our region when it comes to talent. Talent will be the discussion going forward when it comes to economic growth. And we need to focus on the people part of the equation. So you can see we had a 5.5% growth from 2010 to 2018 from the Census Bureau. What's a little concerning is their projection is that our growth will slow down until 2023. I take that as a challenge and as an opportunity for us to continue to recruit people with these great ideas that can work in our great companies, that can start a change as we go forward. So we need to focus on the people part of the equation, the talent. And when we say the word talent, that is everybody from welding, restaurant, doctors, lawyer. Everybody is a huge part of that equation. And that's part of that population number. And that's for Winston-Salem MSA. Labor force, the mayor showed some numbers earlier, and this is kind of the labor force. You will see from the North Carolina Department of Commerce, our labor force is growing. But we did have a little dip there, and we're starting to see it kind of level off, and we need to make sure that we're preparing our community members to enter the labor force, and not just to find employment, but as Dr. Green has ingrained in me and Dr. Spriggs has built on, it's finding careers. It's finding opportunities to provide and finding career opportunities, not just jobs. So unemployment or employment, either way you look at it, the mayor hit on this slide, but I wanted to give some 2010 numbers. You can see the total number of employed, the total number of labor force. And that's a great number. 3.6 is incredibly low. But we also need to make sure as our population's growing, we need to create more jobs to employ our members of our community in that labor force. Our population growth in where we are now, we need more jobs to continue to employ the people as we continue to grow in our population. And we can do that, again, starting companies, growing the ones we have, and attracting new ones. If you look at Forsyth County, this is something I thought was really interesting. You can see it matches the Winston-Salem number. Sometimes you can think about the urban-rural piece of it, but in Forsyth County, you can see the number is the same, 179,315 employed. A number that's really hard to track is who is underemployed. Just having a job, is it underemployed or fully employed? So we took that a next step further, and we dug into wages. So we looked at the wages of our comparative metro MSAs, and this is a little challenging because Winston-Salem and Greensboro, as you know, used to be one MSA, and we were two separate. So sometimes that gets broken out, but our good friends at Piedmont Tribe Partnership and using the Carolina Core concept here, we were able to look at numbers on a region. But our average hourly wage here in Winston-Salem, slightly better than Greensboro, but you can see Durham and Chapel Hill is higher. Why? Tech, medical, different things of that nature. But when we're starting to look at average yearly wage, $44,910, we need to continue to grow the companies, start the companies, and recruit the companies. That's the theme as we help try to make our wages grow as we attract new talented people and new talented jobs. So how is the Chamber of Commerce doing that? We focus on retention and expansion. So we are visiting the top 100, 200 companies in our community, and we're also visiting the 1- and 2-person businesses because they're all important for us. But there are 3 projects that we specifically worked on to try to help focus. Now these are just, we had over 700 new jobs. As you can see, about $62 million in capital investment between these 3 companies. These are companies that are here already, and they are prime targets for future growth, and we were able to help facilitate those growths. One of the things I thought was fantastic about that, the clearinghouse, those 50 jobs averaged $90,000 salary. So we're talking all type of different levels of jobs, and we're thankful for those companies, and we know there are other companies here in this community that we can help them grow and take that next step as we go forward. One of the assets that doesn't get talked about that often, I saw Mark Davidson here, and I know we have some county commissioners as well in attendance, is our Smith Reynolds Airport. Smith Reynolds Airport is a hidden gem in our community that we need to focus on a little bit more when it comes to economic development. You can see a little background, the Chamber funded a Aerotropolis study, which focused on the airport and the surrounding area around the airport in terms of future economic growth opportunities. That takes in account for the neighborhoods and how can the economic growth in the neighborhoods coexist and be beneficial for each other. And that's what we've been working on. So according to the NCDOT study that was part of this and grew on that, there's $801 million economic impact and over 3,585 jobs associated with Smith Reynolds Airport right here in our community. Those jobs impact our community and provide for families, and they are careers. And there's a lot of future growth, thanks to Forsyth Tech, looking at aviation school, going at the airport. The airport is an opportunity for us to look at the connectivity to Innovation Quarter, downtown, Whitaker Park, and our entire community for new future job growth. And it's something that we'll be focused on going forward. The next is preparing the workforce. We're talking about jobs. We're talking about trying to have more jobs for people, and we need to do that and have people prepared. One of those initiatives is Work Ready Forsyth. Forsyth County has applied to become a North Carolina certified Work Ready community. What that means is that our community acknowledges and accepts the CRC testing through our school, which is called Work Keys. So I am taking the Work Keys assessment test right now because I don't want to ask a company to support this and not understand what goes into it. And it's not an easy test. Taking it at Forsyth Tech, and it is not easy, but it gives employers a tool to use for employment of the next generation of our current workforce as well, and what skill sets do they have, whether that's to be a great bank teller or a welder or a doctor, whatever that is. And our school system has our students in the CTE programs taking this test right now. But we need our companies to acknowledge this, to see platinum, gold, silver, bronze, and what levels jobs go along with that. And we're working towards that and have an April 25th goal of an event to highlight. And this is, again, back to our tagline as the Chamber, together. This is for everyone, and we have to do this as a team as we work forward. So just as finish on the economic side, and then I move into the education piece. Our chamber is primed and ready to continue to help our companies grow, start, and be a team player in the recruitment effort as we continue to build off of that foundation as we grow forward and make Winston-Salem, not Charlotte, not anywhere else, but the best Winston-Salem it can be. That's our goal, and that's what we want to do going forward. So now I'm going to pivot. The mayor asked me to kind of pitch hit here on some education update. So this is something that just to be honest, we've seen some numbers. We've heard a lot of optimism, and there's optimism. But we also have to have a realistic approach and a realistic view of where we currently are. So allow me to do that with some numbers, if you will. Educational attainment in Forsyth County, looking at individuals 25 years and older, where are we? 11% in 2017. You can see that we were able to grow our our pendulum a little bit towards the bachelor's degree or greater, some college or associates, those upticked. But our high school graduate, that's the top level, and that's why that number is a little lower, because the top numbers have grown. But it's something to see. 11% of our population had less than a high school graduate. That's something that we just can't accept as we go forward. We have to invest as a community in that. The next one. 51.6% of third graders are at or above grade level reading. 51.6% of third graders. I'm just pausing. That has to be a number that says we have to make that change. Have to make that change, and we have to do it together for everyone. You hear so many times that you learn to read, and then at the third grade you read to learn. And this is a number that is crucial in attracting companies. Look at this. They look at our school system, and Bob will probably hit on that a little bit for you, but our school system is crucial for us. And we have some school board members that are incredibly passionate, and they're here, and we are going to change that. Many of you know that there will be a process for a new superintendent. That is a community thing that we need to look at. Everybody cares, and I can promise you this. If you go into our schools and you meet our teachers, they care deeply, deeply about our children and our future leaders. And the room like this is the type of room we need to support our school system going forward. This is an inflection point, a turning point for us going forward, that we continue to focus on educational attainment as we make a difference going forward. And I don't want to just say that we need to get students to the third grade reading level. We need to focus on graduation rates as well. So our graduation rate right now is 84.4% of students graduate on time. That number, the way it was calculated by the legislator had to change a little bit on whether a student was in the school system for all 4 years of high school or not. And that brought our number down a little bit, but it still has got to be higher. And something I want to make sure, I had a great conversation this morning with an educator in our community that said, we can't take the top of the class and bring them down a little bit while we bring the lower level up. They all have to go up together at the same time. So we need to continue not just to make our numbers grow, but to make our high achievers. And you can look at schools like Atkins. They're teaching students how to code. They're the next wave of our leaders in our community. We have to be able to support our high school at Winston-Salem Forsyth County schools. And we need people to do that at school board meetings. Get involved, volunteer. There's so many different ways. WS Reads. The Chamber has a senior academy where we focus on high school dropout prevention. Our graduation rate of our program is 99%. So if we can get volunteers and mentors into programs one-on-one with our students, our rate is 99% of those identified as dropout prevention. So we need to focus on that as a community. But not just there. I can't tell you how many people from around the country call and talk about how you have amazing institutions of higher education in Winston-Salem. Not only a number of them, but just look at this list. We have a leader in Forsyth Tech that has hosted 2 presidents at Forsyth Tech. In terms of, yes, the United States presidents have attended Forsyth Tech coming to see the campus. Innovative ideas. Dr. Spriggs is here with us today. We are so excited to have you in our community. And Dr. Green's here. Thank you for your leadership. We have a leading workforce program at Forsyth Tech. But did you also know they're teaching cybersecurity, helping to keep all your money safe? Did you know they're teaching mechatronics, 3D printing, robotics, healthcare, all of that on campus? If you haven't been, go. We are signing up to go do the mock assembly line as a team building activity, and I'm very excited about it. Piedmont International University, a great religious-based school. Salem College, a leading women's college in the United States, right here in Old Salem. UNC School of the Arts. Look at this facility. We're blessed to have UNC School of the Arts. Wake Forest University, not to mention their MBA program, which I know we have some of the representatives from. And to be able to have multiple campuses and being invested and then the Rams at Winston-Salem State University. I happen to own more Rams gear than I do any of my other schools. Chancellor Robinson made sure of that I found the bookstore on my first week here. But Winston-Salem State has one of the highest economic impact numbers in our community. Their graduates stay here, make a difference, and are invested in our community. We are blessed and fortunate to have these institutions of higher learning. And if we can close that pipeline gap of students getting out for bad causes or helping our reading level, we have the infrastructure to develop the talent for tomorrow right here. But we have to come together and do that and lead in that area. So your Chamber of Commerce works on retaining, growing businesses, and we also focus on the education piece. So I know I went a little long, but trying to cover both of those dynamics, they do tie together, but they're also a little different. So now this is my contact information. I'll be around afterwards, happy to talk or answer questions off to the side, or you can please feel free to contact us anytime directly so we can try to help. I'd like to introduce Evan Raleigh up next, Mayor, our Assistant City Manager and an all-star for Winston-Salem.
Thank you, Mark. Good morning. Well, I echo what's been shared about this crowd. This is really a phenomenal turnout, and it's really heartening for me to see so many people interested in the current status and the future of our community. So again, thank you for coming out. So I have the great privilege of being able to share with you some updates on several indicators of community well-being. That's kind of how we've couched it here, but really I think I call them some of the most pressing issues, not that education and entrepreneurship are not pressing issues, but other pressing issues that our community is facing. And those include, of course, our efforts to combat poverty, our efforts to address the looming affordable housing crisis that we have here in the community, and tackling economic developments, figuring out ways to spur economic development in areas of our community that have suffered from tremendous disinvestment and lack of investment over the years. So I'll start first with poverty, and fortunately the news is good. So this is the results, and I thank Foresight Futures for providing me with this data. But as you look at the poverty rate for Forsyth County overall, this is a graph that shows poverty over several years, but I want to draw your particular attention to 2013 to 2017. What the graph indicates is that poverty has fallen in Forsyth County from 21% in 2013 to 17% in 2017, so a drop of 4%. And largely that decrease in poverty in Forsyth County has been driven by the significant decline in our rate of poverty that we've experienced here in the city of Winston-Salem. As you see, Winston is the purple graph up top, or purple line up top, and you see that we have declined, our rate of poverty has declined from 27% in 2013 to 21% in 2017. And as you dive a little bit deeper into the data and ask the question of how are the various subgroups that are represented in the community faring when it comes to poverty, this graph illustrates that point. So you see poverty for African Americans is on the decline. It was at 35% in 2013 and has fallen now to 26% in 2017. For Hispanic and Latino residents, their poverty rate was 56% in 2013 and has declined to 40% in 2017. And I should mention that these are statistics for the city of Winston-Salem and not for the county. And for non-Hispanic whites, certainly not experiencing a decline, but fortunately, the numbers remain pretty stable. The rate for that particular subgroup has kind of hovered right around the 10% mark. And so looking forward, these are great numbers certainly, but I think there's a recognition among everyone in the community that this is good, it's good news, but it's not good enough. Certainly with the mayor's leadership, many of you remember the Poverty Thought Force that was convened to focus and study on this study these issues and figure out solutions for sustainable declines in our poverty rate. That work continues, and fortunately in the very short term, we will be announcing the executive director of a new organization called the Partnership for Prosperity that will be leading the charge going forward in terms of carrying out the work that was started by the Poverty Thought Force and figuring out, again, ways to keep these declines that we're witnessing now, kind of keeping the trend in that direction. Next, I'll turn my attention to affordable housing. Now, I know that much has been written. I know that this is an engaged group, and I'm sure that you have heard reports from all around the country about the demand and need for affordable housing. I know most of you probably think of affordable housing, you probably think Charlottes and Durhams and DCs and New Yorks and big cities, but I'm here to tell you that that crisis has landed on our doorstep here in Winston-Salem. Last year, the City Council commissioned a housing needs assessment and study that, and like any good report, it's a couple hundred pages in length, but I've tried to reduce it here to just a couple of really salient points in small slides. But this chart actually is a snapshot of where we stand right now today in terms of how our availability of housing for folks in certain income groups compares to the demand for housing in those income groups. So the takeaway here is if you're below 80% of the area median income, you probably are having a difficult time finding housing that you can afford in our community. That orange that's on top reflects the shortage. That's the shortage of units available to affordable units available to folks in that particular income group. So, for instance, you see the greatest shortage is represented in folks who are earning 30% of area median income or less. And that is a striking statistic. Again, that's representative today. So we have a gap, a shortage of more than 16,000 units, affordable units, for people who are below 80% of median income. And if you look, interestingly, above 80% of area median income, we actually have an oversupply of housing for folks that are in those income groups. To kind of further illustrate this point, this is as you look 10 years out. This is part of what our consultants did for us, was to look 10 years out or so into the future in 2027 to figure out what our demand was going to be for housing and who was going to be demanding the housing. So the takeaway here, and I've highlighted the area in blue there to demonstrate. So our total demand is projected in Winston-Salem to be an additional 14,000 units that we'll need by 2027. And a significant number of those units will be demanded by folks earning $35,000 or less. So that, again, we have a shortage today. We will continue to get demand from folks in the lower rungs of our income level. So it just impresses and furthers the point that this is an issue that we're gonna have to pay particular attention to going forward. And so in that regard, happy to be able to share that the City Council has recently appointed an Affordable Housing Coalition to look at the results of the report and to begin to strategize on ways that we can create more affordable housing units to address what this report says we're going to need going forward. We've also, and thanks to many of you in the room, have $10 million or so that were set aside in the 2018 bond referendum to support housing development in the community. And we are certainly going to look at how we can maximize those dollars, again, to address this blooming, really, crisis that we have. And finally, I want to talk just a little bit about development, particularly in the East Winston area. The city commissioned partnered with the S.G. Atkins Community Development Corporation to devise a master plan for the area that is known as East Indian. If you see it on the map, it's there on the left. It's the area of the community that is bounded by 52, US 52 to the west, Martin Luther King Jr. Drive to the north and to the east, and Business 40 to the south. And so a master plan was created to think about what the future of that particular area could look like. As I mentioned, there are many areas of our community that have suffered from disinvestment and lack of investment over time, and this certainly qualifies as one. And certainly thanks to the leadership of S.G. Atkins, there's been a renewed focus on trying to drive economic development in this particular area. And so the planning and design firm Ayers St. Gross out of Baltimore came up with a master plan that's now been adopted by our city county planning board, by the mayor and city council, and this is the vision that they have for the future development of that area. And just sort of generally, I know that's probably hard to read, but it gives you kind of an aspiration of, or kind of vision for what the future land use types could be. It's a mix of residential, commercial, multifamily, a little bit of everything. This gives you a better idea visually of what we see the area looking like as you look to the future. This is a shot of what 5th Street is envisioned to be at some point when it's developed into the future. Again, a very vibrant and bustling area where you've got multifamily development, you've got commercial development, retail development, and again, just bringing some new vibrancy to this area of the community. So you may be asking, how do we plan to get there? It's nice to create pretty pictures, but many of you, certainly in the development community, know that it's a lot more difficult to actually make your vision come to fruition. But to the credit of a mayor and city council, we have set aside $3 million to assist with the strategic acquisition of properties that are within this East End footprint, again, for the purposes of economic development. We have also set aside an additional $2 million from bond funds to enhance the corridor, the 5th Street corridor, which you see pictured here, which is really envisioned to be a primary gateway to the East End area. So quickly, that is all the time I think I have. Again, it's great to be with you this morning, and thank you again for your participation, and I think I'll call Bob Leake up next.
Okay, I guess I'm kind of almost the end. I want to add my welcome, and thank you all for taking time out of your day to be with us, to hear about what's going on in this community. You've heard from my colleagues a lot of exciting, positive things that are going on, a few challenges that we all are facing moving forward. But the good news is we're all working together, using Mark's term and the Chamber's term, to try to figure out a way to continue to move this community forward and get us to the next level of where we want to be. My responsibility today is to talk to you about capital projects, and I'll do that and go through a number of things fairly quickly. I will tell you there are others in this audience today, though, that could give this presentation a lot better than I can. I called on them for their help in putting it together, so I want to thank Pat Ivey, who's sitting right over here. I want to thank Kyle Haney from the county, and I want to thank Evan, who you just heard from, for helping me gather some of the information that I need to tell you about those capital projects. You know, last year I was able to tell you a couple of exciting things. The new library on 5th Street, the main library was open. Benton Convention Center opened their doors last year. Work had begun at Bailey Power Plant, and a lot of new residential projects were underway. As we go through this year, I want to cover, again, a number of things that are underway in the community, and I've divided it into 3 sections. We're going to talk about community projects. We're going to talk about kind of the site and facility issue, which is a continuing issue for our community, and I'm going to talk a bit about some of the transportation updates that are moving forward. The good news is that I think we're in a good spot in a lot of these. I will tell you that when companies are looking at doing business in a community like Winston-Salem, they're looking for things like better roads and abundant utilities. They're looking for parks, diverse residential options. They're looking for sites and buildings. They're looking for community space, things to do when they're not at work. And so a lot of the focus on this community the last 2 or 3 years has been on just that. How do we improve and make a holistic community for people moving forward? So without further delay, let me start on some of the community projects. And I've got a few images up here. I will start by saying that sitting prominently on the eastern entrance of our city is Union Station. If you have not been into Union Station, I encourage you to get in your car and drive over there, get on your scooter and ride over there, or walk over there and see the transformation that has taken place at this beautiful facility. An $18.3 million upgrade has just been completed. The interior of the project has been completely restored to what its original glory in the 1930s was. This was the train station for Winston-Salem. It's where everybody went to grab a train to go wherever they wanted to go. There's retail space, there's office space, and there's some outdoor community space right there. So please go take a look at that if you can. Bailey Power Plant on the top right, we've heard a little bit about that. It did open at the end of the year and now is home to about 110,000 square feet of multi-purpose space, including entertainment, retail, restaurants, meeting, and office space. Again, quite an exciting facility. And then on the bottom left is a rendering of what Front Street Capital just started, and that is the new Bailey South project that again will create additional office and retail space wrapping around the current Bailey Power Plant. So really excited when that opens sometime in 2020. You've heard an update already on our challenge with residential. The good news is there is a lot of residential that is under construction. No matter where you go in all parts of downtown, you're going to see some bit of construction, including the 340 units that the mayor spoke about right next to Bailey Power Plant. Plans have been announced for a future project on 4th Street adjacent to 500 West 5th Street building. And my friend Jason Thiel continues to tell me that we soon will have over 2,000 residential units in downtown Winston-Salem. The city council particularly has been working with developers to make sure that there is a move toward putting worker housing and affordable housing as part of these new developments. So stay tuned, because I think that's going to be a continued trend that you see here in the community. And then the bottom right slide is the rendering of Marshall Plaza. I'm pleased to say it's underway. As you drive down 4th Street right now, it just looks like a big pile of dirt. And that is exactly what's there. But soon you will see that be transformed into an outdoor performance and green space, basically a central park for downtown Winston-Salem right there at 4th Street, giving our city additional outdoor gathering spaces to complement Bailey Park and other green spaces in downtown. That project is scheduled to be completed sometime in mid-2020. So again, some community projects that are underway. Some additional things that have taken place over the course of this past year. As I said at the start of my comments, we opened the doors on the main library in downtown Winston-Salem last year, right before this presentation. Well, soon to be complete is the new Clemens Library, a 20,000 square foot facility that will open later this year. I'm really excited to continue the discussion that several have had about what's going on at our airport. I agree completely with Mark's comments that it is one of our underutilized economic development assets. I was pleased to see the numbers of how it is growing. But the good news is there's some really exciting things getting ready to take place, not the least of which is this new training center. The county passed a bond referendum in 2016. Then $16.6 million will be spent on a new aviation training facility at Smith Reynolds Airport, the rendering on the top right. This project has a potential opening date sometime in mid-2021. I'm pleased to say that at a meeting I had with Dr. Spriggs last week, she indicated that they had just signed the documents, or had just received the documents, and were ready to sign the documents for the design of this facility, and plans are hopefully to have this underway sometime later this year. When it's open, it will provide a state-of-the-art training facility for students in aircraft maintenance and production, and it ties in very nicely with what the Carolina Corps and Piedmont Triad Partnership and my colleagues throughout this region are working on, and that is an Aerotropolis initiative for our region and our community. So a nice, very nice change going on there. The county is also moving forward with the design and construction of the new courthouse. This will be a $120 million project that includes a $13 million 660 space parking deck adjacent to it in downtown Winston-Salem, and you can see the rendering there. A contractor was chosen in late September of 2018, and work will begin on that project later this year. Now, in addition to those kind of iconic community projects, I was asked to give a quick update on where we are with the 2014 bonds, and I would like to thank publicly again Evan for his help with this, and the city who maintains a bond page that I'll give you the address to in just a minute if you want the status of any of the bonds and projects that are going on. What you'll see here is that there are 5 strategic areas under the 2014 bonds, and those include public safety, housing, recreation, streets and sidewalks, and economic development. And what these slides show essentially are there are, let's see, 390 total projects under the 2014 bond package. 284 of those projects have been completed. There are 22 that are well underway and should be completed later this year. And the majority of the remaining projects are in design and should be under construction and soon to be finished probably in next year. So it gives you a real good snapshot that the bond money has been used very, very well. All of the projects that were earmarked are well underway, and as a community we ought to feel proud about that. In addition, there are some strategic projects that are underway that aren't in that finished list, and I wanted to just quickly cover those. Under recreation, there's some parks and golf courses and things that are underway. Haynes Park, for instance, working on deferred maintenance, some restroom improvements, and a beautification project. Winston Lake Golf Course is getting ready to have a redo of all 19 greens, repair and improvements of 4 bridges, installation of on-course restrooms, and improvement of the cart paths that are there. Miller Park, they're improving the stream, adding benches, lighting, and new signage. The Parkland Pool is getting completely redone, and they're adding a spray ground. They didn't have those when I was growing up, but it sounds like fun. So maybe we could all meet there at the spray ground this summer. 2nd Street Park, they're working on landscaping, walkways, and other site improvements. And Northward Park, which is an interesting project where they're developing a park designed for people with disabilities. So under the recreation area, those are some of the things underway. The public safety sector, that actually, of all the projects that were listed there, everything is complete except for the Beatty Public Safety Training and Support Center. It is almost complete, should be finished sometime before this summer, and so all of the public safety items will be done. Streets and sidewalks continue to just be a kind of a continuing process. In addition to some old Salem infrastructure, the community continues to look at adding bike lanes, looking at improving sidewalks, and repairing and resurfacing roads throughout the community as they are needed. Housing, again, tying back into some of the comments that we've had today, there's a housing project at New Hope Manor, which is a senior living project with 28 one-bedroom apartments and 22 two-bedroom apartments, and also a community center on site. Ridgewood Place is 79 units, and the Emmanuel Retirement Village is 3- and 4-bedroom homes that are being constructed, and there'll be home buyer assistance there for those that are interested. And then finally, under economic development, I've already commented on the first 2 or 3. I will tell you the interesting one, and I forgot to point it out on the earlier slide, is the Hydroponic Aquaponic Job Training Center. I know that Councilmember Adams, this was her project that she spearheaded, and this is a very interesting project that is underway and will be home to the location for training for people that want to learn to grow food inside a warehouse instead of having to find a plot of land. And hopefully that'll help with the whole food desert issues that we have, where you could potentially learn to grow food anywhere that you have a viable space to do that. And as I said, for more detailed information on the status of these bonds, if you go to the 2014 bonds.cityofws.org, you'll be able to see the status of every single one of these projects and the others. Very, very good website. And we're not done yet. If you remember, in 2018, the citizens approved overwhelmingly a 2018 bond program. I won't go through all of these, and I know you're glad about that, but what this shows are potentially a number of projects to support the $122 million of bond that were passed. Again, it's a number of areas in economic development and parks and recreation and things, and I'll be back next year to talk about where we are under this particular map. So beginning to wrap up, I want to talk about buildings and sites, because this is probably one of the main Achilles heels that we have in our community as it relates to economic development. There are 2 primary drivers for economic development. That is a physical location to do what you do and people to help you do what you do. You've heard a lot about what's going on in trying to make sure we have a workforce. We also are working very diligently to try to make sure we have a site or a physical location for companies to do what they do. And so there's some very, very interesting projects that are going on. The top left is a spec building. 2 years ago, the city of Winston-Salem approved loaning $2.5 million to Winston-Salem Business Inc. for the construction of a new spec building. We took that to market. We got bids. We came back, and unfortunately, things were a little expensive at the time for us, so we were unable to build a spec building on our site at Union Cross Business Park. But we were able to partner with a local developer, Front Street Capital, and we were able to leverage that $2.5 million to well over $5 million. And what you see there is a 140,000 square foot spec building in the southeast part of the county, right off of Union Cross Road, right behind the Dell and Herbalife facilities, and also Caterpillar. And I will tell you, this building has created a tremendous amount of activity in companies interested in looking at facilities in this community. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say that my guess is before summer we'll have that building under contract, because we have that many people looking. The bad news is then the building's gone. So where's the next one going to be? So we're working diligently on that. In addition, in the same area where that building is, there's another 60 or so acres to be developed, and we continue to work with Front Street Capital on the redevelopment of that. The city also is looking at an 80-acre site on Union Cross Road, looking at potentially spending some bond dollars to secure that piece of property. It's an attractive location that could be home for 2 or 3 additional companies at some point in the future. Whitaker Park, the mayor was nice to tee that up. I'll tell you, at the close of 2018, Cook Medical completed their purchase of 850,000 square feet of space, which is inside the red box on the top left of that picture on the right. Their plan is to turn that into a world-class production facility for endoscopic equipment. They are well under their design, and we expect work to start sometime middle of this year with an opening either late 2020 or 2021. But they plan to transform that campus. But the good news is there's still close to 1 million square feet of space left in that park, and there's also about 50 developable acres in and around the park. And we are also going to be doing a lot of improvements on the physical infrastructure, including a new road that we hope will create an opportunity for US 52 and people to be tied through all the way to the Wake Forest University athletic programs with the extension of Akron Drive and Shorefair Drive. In fact, we're opening bids at 2 o'clock today for that road work, and so expect to see activity going on out there as early as April. In terms of Innovation Quarter, I won't rehash what the mayor already said because he covered that clearly, but I will say that is one exciting piece of the economic development puzzle in this community. It's already home to things like Wake Forest University Medical School, the downtown campus of Forsyth Technical Community College. It is home to all of the activity around Bailey Power Plant and the new residential. But what we didn't talk about was the fact that there is still a number of beautiful developable sites that are headquarter type sites located right along US 52 and Salem Parkway that we believe are kind of the next piece of downtown that's got to be developed. And so we're all trying to work closely with folks at Innovation Quarter and Wexford and others to make sure that that park continues to develop and be the engine that we know that it can be. To further our site offerings, the county is in the middle of finishing designs on a new business park over in the Clemens area right off of Idols Road, known as Tanglewood Business Park. It's a 160-acre park. One site has already been sold in the park. There are several folks looking at other sites, and soon work will begin on their phase 1 infrastructure, which includes new road infrastructure and access, as well as the construction of a new Idols Road lift station which is a sewer facility that will support over 500 acres in addition to this park, all over in the Clemens and Tanglewood area. And then finally, I want to wrap up in talking about some of the updates on our transportation network around Winston-Salem and Forsyth County. You know, for a long time, we have been the only urban community in the state of North Carolina without a completed loop or beltway system. I'm pleased to say that that is changing, and it's changing very rapidly. NCDOT is on schedule to spend over $2 billion in our community over the next few years, and a lot of these projects are indicative of that money. And also, I will tell you that with Pat Ivey and his leadership, we'll be hosting the DOT board in town next week, and we'll get to show off some of the progress that we've made on these projects. The map on the bottom left and the picture on the top left show you what's going on with the Eastern Beltway. That first leg, that 3.4-mile segment now visible from Business 40, is well underway and soon to be complete. The map on the bottom shows that the remaining segments of the Eastern Beltway, including the US 311 to 52 leg, are all scheduled and at various points of being under construction, and that all work on those are scheduled to be completed by the end of 2022. And then, of course, the western leg is in kind of the early stages of site acquisition and design, but look for that to be happening as soon as the eastern legs all wrap up. And then finally, the big project for Winston-Salem over the course of the last year or so, and probably for the balance of this year, is what's going on with Business 40 and Salem Parkway. The map on the bottom right showed you the rendering of what the proposed construction schedule was and is for the improvements on that road. I will tell you that we are well underway, as the photo on the top right shows. That is actually the old Business 40 road bed going through the center of that picture. The Peters Creek Parkway interchange was completed on schedule. Included in this 1.2 miles of road improvement are 9 vehicular bridges and 2 pedestrian bridges. If all of the milestones are met, the work will be completed no later than early 2020. We're hoping that if we get good weather and good speed, that could even potentially be sooner than that. And I think most of us would all agree we were scared to death of the chaos that the road closing was going to create for all of us in our commute into the community, and it just hasn't turned out to be quite that bad. And I've got to send credit out to the North Carolina Department of Transportation, to the city, to the county, and to the Downtown Winston-Salem Partnership, and to all of the downtown businesses who spent a lot of time up front educating all of us about the need to find alternative routes into the community. So when the day came and that road closed, we all had a way to get where we needed to go. And I will tell you, I think it's gone very well. So I hope you all are as excited as I am about what's going on in the way of capital projects throughout this community. We've got a long way to go, but a lot of things are going along very well. And we're going to continue to move this forward so that we can become one of those top 50 best communities in the country. So I'll turn it back over to the mayor, and I thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you, and I apologize, folks. We are running over our time just a little bit here, but I guess it's because we got so much to share in our area. I just want to, excuse me, we'll go back one here. Some things that you've heard. Obviously, we did achieve our job target. Strong residential and commercial investment has occurred. Significant progress in entrepreneurship, in Aerotropolis, major capital projects that you just saw, progress in education, colleges, and university, and our poverty rate is down. It's not where we want it to be, but it is downward trending. And I want to call out Councilmember James Taylor for a program that he started some time ago called SOAR, which ties into working with ex-offenders and getting them back to work. And I think that has a very clear bearing on poverty and the good things that are happening there. Now, I do want to focus on some 2019 concerns and focus. Obviously, the BB&T merger of equals is one that we're all concerned about. Disappointed, obviously, with the loss of the corporate headquarters here in our communities. No question about that. As Kelly King has said to us, moving the headquarters to Charlotte was not something indicative of a dissatisfaction with Winston-Salem. It was a coming together of SunTrust and BB&T as a merger of equals. They could not be in Atlanta, they could not be in Winston-Salem, and had to be in a neutral place, and they chose Charlotte. Still, it hurts. We're losing our bragging rights from losing these corporate jobs. However, on the bright side, we are retaining or being selected to have the combined headquarters of the community banking division here. And Kelly King, the CEO of BB&T and the new CEO of the combined company, says, quote, he doesn't have an expectation of any dramatic change in employment in Winston-Salem. In fact, we'll likely see a gainful employment increase, which is strong. And Tony Plath, which you see quoted a lot in the paper, he's an expert in banking issues, said, quote, don't underestimate the growth impact of the community bank. So I think in the long-term way, we're going to be okay in terms of actual jobs coming in. Matter of fact, Tony talks about the fact that SunTrust has a centralized model for the community bank, whereas BB&T has decentralized. When you put all that together, he feels like there could be opportunities for thousands of new jobs here. We're waiting to see on that. And the other important piece of it is that BB&T has said they're going to actually increase the amount of community investment in our community. Sorry. The other issue that we want to look at, of course, is affordable housing that I haven't talked about, and tied into that is the opportunity zones. We have 10 opportunity zones in our city. We want to position Winston-Salem to take advantage of those. 2019 is a critical year for those who want to take advantage of this program to get the investment in and get the full 7-year credit. So we'll be working hard on that. Bob says we've got to have more business sites, and we're going to do that. The technology skills recruitment program is a good problem to have. It means that we're ratcheting up our technology base and a new company startups to need that. And we want to certainly not forget our commitment to the environment. We have had a very robust community sustainability program that we're now getting ready to reinvigorate and to reduce our carbon initiative. So in summary, my opinion is that most of these indicators that you've seen today are a strong indicator of a very strong and thriving economy. The social indicators are good, although we got a lot more work to do in education and make sure that poverty rate continues to trend down. But the key thing, I think, is to make sure that we have equity in our community, that all segments of our community take advantage of the good growth that's occurring here. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for coming today, and we'll see you again next year. By the way, here's where you can send questions if you want to follow up.